Hello, my lovely witches. I thought it was time for me to do another Art Witch show and tell because it's been ages. If you're not familiar with the channel, if this is your first time coming here, welcome. I'm Corrigan. I make videos about art witchery, lots and lots of grimoires and Book of Shadows tours. I do altar tours and I talk about creating objects for use in your magical practice or as art spells. So welcome. I have a bunch of things that I'm going to show you today. You may have seen them before, as many of them have actually appeared in altar tours. And also, if you follow me on my Instagram, which is at Corrigan Moon Leopard with underscores between the letters, but search Corrigan Moon Leopard, you'll find me. You will have seen them on there as well. So this is a bunch of stuff probably from the last 12 months or so. Because I reckon it's probably been that long since I did a show and tell with you guys. So let's just get started. The first one I'm going to show you is something that I did for the As Above, So Below prompts earlier in the year. This was for the prompt about night and day, balance, light and dark, all that sort of stuff. And I painted these wooden candlesticks, one with the moon and one with the sun. You can pick up these candlesticks in craft stores or online pretty quickly, pretty cheaply. They're fairly easy to find. I actually have another two that I plan to paint with images of the god and the goddess as representative of god goddess candles, but I haven't finished them. They're in one of my many works in progress. Then we have a few. I reckon it's actually 2 years ago now. I purchased some of those little. It was a pack of 3 little figurines made of plaster in a kit for children, and I painted them. So this is my little dragon. He sits on my prosperity altar, which for me makes sense because dragons hoard treasure. So he's a little prosperity dragon. He's pretty cute. Hello, I'm a prosperity dragon. So he sits on my prosperity altar. Then there was a unicorn, which I have come to realise I always paint unicorns pink. And I have no idea why. But the more unicorns I've crafted or drawn or coloured in from colouring pages, I always do them in pink. It's really bizarre. You'll see another one later on. So this is a little pink unicorn that sits in my bathroom on my self-love altar, bringing me all the unicorny goodness. And the other one that sits also in my bathroom is this lovely little blue mermaid. Now, I've used acrylic paint on these, but I've also used a gloss that is designed for sort of air dry clay. So it's really quite sturdy and it helps to stop anything from chipping, helps to stop them from breaking. It's particularly good on air dry clay, which I find can be quite brittle and damages easily. So there's those 3 little guys. Then I have some little charms that I've made. I've made this little charm for self-love, for seeing myself as beautiful, which is something I struggle with. So that's what this charm is for. And again, it sits in my bathroom on my self-love / beauty altar. And then I've got these 2 protection charms, which I have in various rooms of the house. They've sort of travelled around the house. They've been on my altar. They've been on the back of my front door, in my hallway, and other places around the house as well. And these are just made from those craft wood shapes. I mostly find them in the op shop or charity store. And then just paint them, decoupage them, This is another one that you've probably seen if you've watched my altar tour videos. This is my sigil for the word flow, which was my word of the year for 2024. And then I have this little guy inspired by something I saw on a video of Molly Roberts years and years ago. And I came across these metal butterfly wings in the op shop and glued them to a Christmas bauble badly. This has been hanging up for several years and I just don't think I've ever shown it to you. Added some puff paint and some other paints and painted the eye on it. So there he is. The wings were heavier than I expected them to be, and hence the shit ton of hot glue to glue them on. But so far, he's holding up. Then I have another one that's been on my altar, you know, on and off. This is one of those papier-mâché craft items. Again, I found it in the op shop, and I am a typical 90s goth girl and in love with all things sun and moon, so I painted him with suns and moons and stars. Again, acrylic paint and paint pens. Very simple. And we have some, these are sort of specific spells that I've created. So this one, it's actually a bracelet that I've made, just with some felt, some ribbon, some trim, beads, buttons, and what have you. But I have spelled this for professional respect in my working life. So that's specifically what this one is for. So when I wear it, I am exuding, you know, confidence in myself, in my work persona. And then this one, which is to bring loving, harmonious energies into my life and into my creative work. So again, also to do with creativity and sort of work, whether that be personal work or professional work. And that one I did with a little loop and button closure. And again, just some trim and some felt and sewed on this little charm. Quite simple, but very effective way to introduce a bit of magic into your sort of everyday, if you want to, sort of almost like a little bit of glamour magic. I plan to do more of these. These are the only two that I've done, but I had plans for some others as well. And then this one, again, you've probably seen before. This is my sacred vessel for my year of the word, which, as I've said before, is flow. Made with a little babushka, wooden babushka, and painted, decoupaged, and filled with sacred herbs and crystals and intentions and bits and pieces. It's the third year that I've made one of these. Oh, the years bleed together. I think it's the second. I've been doing words of the year now, I realised, for 6 years, so coming up to 7 years next year. And I find them really interesting to see how they pan out across the year. And as I said, this is the second time I've done a little vessel. Sometimes I've done most years I've done prayer flags, but I didn't this year. I'll create other artworks such as my tile and entries into my books of shadows for my word of the year. There's a lot of different ways you can expand on the theme of your word of the year. Speaking of, I will show you another piece that I did partly to do with the prompt series for As Above, So Below that I've mentioned before. This sculpture, wall sculpture, it's too big to fit in frame, but I will show you, is based on a prompt for sort of Aquarius season, but it's also, it's looping on things there, also for flow. So it made sense for me to do that too. I really, really enjoyed creating that one. That was a lot of fun. And again, that was using a tutorial by Molly Roberts on her Patreon. Move some of these guys out the way so they don't get damaged. And then we have a fun little guardian spirit that sits on my altar. Nothing much to him. I just loved this little rock. I loved the shape of him. And so I gave him some googly eyes and brought him to life with a spell. So he sits and guards my altar. Little guardian spirit. This is a fairly old one, but I don't know that I've ever really talked about it. Way, way, way back in the dark ages of my witchcraft practice 30 years ago, witchcraft tools were very expensive and I was very poor. So I tried to find ways to create what I thought I needed. And I've spoken before that back in the 90s, there was a very high emphasis on Wicca, and therefore, as a witch, you sort of felt you had to have the Wiccan tools, including a pentacle, something to represent the earth element on your altar. And I wanted one of the beautiful fancy pentacles that you could see in the shops, and eventually I managed to get one. But in the meantime, I painted a rock with a star. Now, this is not that rock. I do actually still have it, but it's looking a bit faded and old. But in the same spirit of that, I decided to paint this one. So it can sit up this way on the altar against something, or just flat. And it's a very personal way to introduce something into your practice to use as a tool or a representation of something. In this case, I mean, it's a representation of witchcraft, but for me, it's very much a representation of the earth element with the flowers, the rock, the pentagram, etc. So that's my little pentacle. Then we have one that I did more for a bit of fun than anything. I came across this fairy who was missing her wings, and also was painted sort of pastel colours that weren't my vibe. And so I decided to paint her little mushrooms. I painted everything and glued some new wings on her. And now she sits on the bookcase in the library here, just, you know, looking after my books. So she was a bit of fun. And this is something, the next one I'll show you, it's a similar sort of thing. I think with art magic doesn't have to be something that you create from scratch. You can buy something. In this case, this is a candle holder, but the hole is so large that it doesn't really fit any candles I've found. But I liked it, but it was all just black. It's made of plastic. It was all just plain black, and it's sort of got a bit, the details got a bit lost. And so I decided I would upcycle it, you know, chuck a bit of paint on it. Because why not? I love to paint things. And so that's what I did. This is actually gilding wax, the gold. And then paint, a bit more gilding wax. Just rubbed on there to give it a bit more life and a bit more colour, because I like colour. So, you know, if you come across things, you can create interesting items for your altar, as whether they be decorative or for a specific purpose, without having to create them completely from scratch. So I know I hear people say, oh, I'm not very creative, I don't have the artistic skills, or I'd like to do that, but I just don't feel like my skills are good enough. They are good enough. You can do things your way. Don't ever be put off by seeing some amazing artist that creates sculptures or you know, I don't know, spirit dolls or something, then you just think, oh God, I could never do that. You don't necessarily have to do it that way. Find your way of doing it and find a way that works for you and with the skill level that keeps you feeling comfortable and producing something that's unique and beautiful. So, you know, no one has this exact same sculpture anymore because I painted it the way I wanted to paint it. Even though you can pick them up in, you know, just about every discount store has them, particularly at this time of year, which I don't know when this is going to come out, this video, so I probably should say we're very, very close to the end of October, which is when all the Halloween stuff goes into the store or is in the stores. So you can pick things like that up quite cheaply and easily, or wait until after Halloween. You can get them even more cheaply. And then, yeah, get your paints out. Upcycle. Upcycling is so much fun. This is a piece that I found in the op shop. It's a plaster wall plaque. And again, I just painted it. I just got out some glitter paint and some metallic paints and painted a unicorn. And it was this one that I did quite recently, and I realised I always do my unicorns pink. What is that about? I don't know. But apparently my unicorns in my world are pink. Unicorns are pink. Who knew? So I haven't actually hung her yet, but because of the heart and the sort of heart-centered colours that I've chosen, I think I will hang her in my bathroom along with my, you know, beauty and self-love altar that's in there. Then we have 2 more pieces to show you. This one is a protection spell that I created. So, I don't know if you can see all of that in frame. Let me just move some bits and bobs out the way again, and we might be able to get it in full view. Oh, dropping things. Don't worry, nothing's broken. So this is it's just a round canvas that I picked up online, and I've painted it. I've decoupaged it with tissue papers and then some images of roses that came out of a book on roses that I actually got from my parents' library, but you see them in op shops and gardening books and things all the time. They're wonderful for collage. And then these are some resin snakes that I made, but you could use the molds to make them out of air dry clay if that's more your vibe. Don't like to work with resin. I don't do it as much as I used to. I sort of got really into resin making, and then I don't do a lot of it now. However, that's off track. After I'd made them out of resin, I then used gilding, you know, gold leaf to gild them. And it's a protection spell. Again, I haven't hung this yet. I need to put a hook on the back of it because it doesn't have one. And then decide where it lives. That's something that when you're making art, magic, you need to find the right space for it within your home. I mean, unless the spell is, or the, you know, in the doing, if the creating of the thing is the spell, then it, you know, it's done when you're done. But if you're creating something for a purpose, in this case a protection charm or amulet, then you have to think about where you want to hang it. And also in this case, because it's round, I don't know which way up I want it. So that's another thing I've got to think about. Where do you think I should hang it? Where would you hang it in your home? Let me know. I'm curious. And the last piece is something, wow. So this is something I've had for a very, very long time. Again, this is something I inherited from an elderly relative in, I want to say, the late 90s. It was beautiful. It was a green plastic 1930s hand mirror. But it started to look a bit the worse for wear. Now, way back in the 90s is when I actually added these crystals. So they've been there for all that time. But then recently I have decided to just sort of improve it I've always used this as a magical mirror. That is something that it's been used for, you know, over 30 years, maybe. However long, I can't count. Since the late 90s. And I've just added some paint, some decoupage, this is some marbled paper I made, paint pen, drawn on the symbols and the snake and made these little wings out of cardboard. This is a little wooden piece, little plastic Halloween bat, a little bit of leaf trim, and then more paint pen. And then I've actually sealed that with some matte Mod Podge. I didn't want it to look super glossy because the original didn't look super glossy. So I used a matte Mod Podge to seal it rather than something shiny. And that's it. That is my little grouping of bits and pieces I've made over the last little while that I haven't perhaps shown you, or certainly haven't, done a sort of a show and tell of a whole lot of things in recent times. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope this is something that it's the kind of content you want to watch. But I mean, if it's not, too bad, because I'm creating whatever I want to create. Sorry. But it's my channel. I do what I like. But I do hope you enjoyed it. And I hope it's inspired you to think differently about things that you can make or craft for your own magical practice, whether it's for use as a tool, such as this one with the mirror, or whether it's, candlesticks, a pentacle, whether it might be, jewelry or items you can wear for a magical purpose, guardian spirits that you can create, spells that you can create, things you can upcycle. I do highly recommend checking out your charity stores for things you can splash a bit of paint on, add a bit of clay to bring them to life in a way that fits your purpose, your magical purpose. Let me know if this is something that you do. Let me know if it's something you've done. I'd love to see what you've created. So please, 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 if you're on Instagram, DM me pictures or tag me in pictures that you've created of things you've created, because I love seeing things and I get really inspired by what you guys do. I find it can sometimes be a sort of circle of inspiration. Someone will create something that is inspired by something I did, and then they create something and I get inspired by it because it's, a new spin on the idea, and I'm like, oh, I can run with that too. So it's a lot of fun, and I think it helps to keep this little creative art witch coven, going. Much, much love and blessings to you all. And I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye, my loves.